All right. We're here today for another Fireside Chat. As you can see here, we have Alex from PEC, and I also have Tom, one of our solutions engineers, joining us today that will help us navigate this project. Tom, we could actually unshare the screen for now, and we'll hop back in a minute. But I really just wanted the audience to see Alex's background. It's easily one of the best backgrounds we've ever had. Plan on taking it for future Fireside Chats. But wanted to kick this off with giving Alex the opportunity to introduce himself. So tell us a little bit about you, your role, and design and engineering.
Alexander Crownover. I work for PEC, so Professional Engineering Consultants. I've been on the mechanical side of building construction design for about 9 years now. I went to Kansas State University, got my degree in architectural engineering. I've been with PEC since I've graduated. I got my PE. It was a few years after graduating. Like I said, I've been with PEC now for 9 years. PEC as a whole, so we're located in the Midwest. I'm in Wichita, Kansas, which is our headquarters. We've got 7 or 8 satellite offices now, but all kind of centered in the Midwest. So we have Wichita, Topeka, Lawrence, Pittsburgh, Kansas, Kansas City, although it's on the Missouri side. We've got a couple in Oklahoma City, and Tulsa. We've got Fort Collins, Colorado as well. So we're kind of located kind of centrally, but within the space of what we do, we do a lot. We pride ourselves in being a full-scale engineering service. So we've got the civil side, which includes the wastewater, transportation. I'm on the facility side, so I do the, like I said, mechanical stuff. So the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, structural, all upstairs here in the facilities group. We've been using OpenSpace now for a little over a year for our projects.
Nice. I love it. So tell us what's PEC's journey with technology? Can you tell us a little bit about the technology that excites you currently in the industry? And
sure.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be OpenSpace. Like we didn't jump fully into OpenSpace just yet. But I'm curious from a design engineering standpoint, like what technology excites you the most, and how are you guys using that to facilitate these projects and make sure they're on budget and on schedule?
So I actually have a whole little spiel when we'll have like high schoolers or other engineering students visit, trying to get the idea of what type of engineering they're interested in or where their life might take them. But I have a whole spiel about technology advancing through the industry as a whole. I mean, you go back, PEC started in, I think it was 1965. And so when I started, I was working side by side with guys that remember where the office was full of big drafting boards. You walk in and the story was you put a coffee cup down, and if you left that coffee ring, well, too bad, you're staying late tonight because you're gonna have to redraw that entire thing. And so PEC as a whole, we've gone from the time where we're drafting by pencil and paper to a more computerized process. So for me, and we're closely tied with Autodesk. So Autodesk CAD comes around, and now you have the ability to replicate lines and copy lines over and over again just by a file. So instead of having somebody that's dedicated to making the same title block over and over again in a big set, you got hundreds of different sheets with the same title block. You got somebody that has to reproduce that every single time. Now we've got CAD. We have a computer that can replicate that just in a file sense. Well, now in the industry, so when I started with PEC about 9 years ago, we had definitely started down the Revit path. So Revit, I would say, is the next kind of step in the design world. So from CAD, we still have a few projects that are done in CAD. Most of that is usually led by the client that we're working with. So being PEC, Professional Engineering Consultants, we're typically consulting for architects. So we'll follow whatever path they have. for us and my team especially, anymore, I'm basically in Revit every single day, even if the background is given to us in a CAD or a DWG product. So Revit kind of takes it to the next step, whereas it's no longer just a drafting software, it is a modeling software. So for me on the mechanical side, when I draw two lines in CAD or on paper, I'm representing a duct. But in Revit, when I'm modeling that, I am modeling it with a specific system type, a height, an elevation, a duct type. All these same things happen and are modeled in. And when I give the spiel, I'm usually showing a Revit thing, and I can show how, if something moves around in the design, I can quickly shift because all these elements are now interconnected. All this ductwork, I can literally with a few hits of a keystrokes or a mouse, I can move the entire element and everything doesn't break. It just shifts with it. I don't have to delete lines, redraw lines. I'm just moving them to readdress now what has changed in the background. So that's on the design and production side of things. OpenSpace now comes for the capture for us, how we typically use OpenSpace, comes to the capturing and understanding of existing, I would say it's both. Understanding the existing spaces and the existing conditions that we're capturing, and then also the follow-up or the construction administration with how a project is actually being constructed. It's not as in-depth as a contractor would go, but we're still on contract to follow through with our design to make sure it's built to our specifications. So we typically have, depending upon the size of the project, we typically have multiple times we're going out to follow up either with maybe issues that come up or just general different different elements of design or of construction. We would go out to make sure everything is being built to our understanding and expectations. So OpenSpace basically elevated us in the opportunity to capture a lot of data in a very short amount of time for those existing conditions. PEC as a whole, we're, I would say, pretty good at adopting and implementing technology. We actually have a whole department, the VDC department, the virtual design and construction. And that's their whole goal, is to help bridge that gap between technology and the design and construction side. So virtual design and construction. And yeah, they help kind of propel us forward. And they're usually integrated on very specific projects. So we have a high-end client where we have maybe a specific engineering process that they're concerned about, but we can bring a client into a modeled space. So we have a VR headset that we can bring you into the model to see what that might actually look like. On my side, on the Revit side, I say on my side, I'm on the Revit team to help continue to maintain our Revit standards and then continue to build out families and build out all those smarts. So for me, that's what checks my boxes and ticks my what I'm interested in. So but yeah, for me, things like OpenSpace are just more opportunities to make that whole process more efficient and easier for myself and all the people that I'm working with and the architects that we're working for. So
yeah, I love that. And I like how you use the term bridge the gap. I mean, in a lot of ways, you guys are the focal point of the project, bridging the contractor, the architect, the owner, the stakeholders, and not only with the design, but with the as-built as well, utilizing open to be able to easily capture that data. So also just kind of keeping this high-level approach while we're still here, tell us from your perspective, what are some of the challenges you see in the industry right now, design and also in the field?
Yeah. I mean, so I've only been in this game for about 9 years, which I say only because PEC being around such a long time and just the culture where we're at in the Midwest. I started and I still work with people who have been here for 30 plus years. So I feel very new in this whole industry, especially with the guys that I get to work with every day. But in my time, even in the 9 years that I've been here, I have noticed a dramatic increase in or I would say decrease in the timeline of both design and construction. And there's a couple of high-level projects that I could mention. We did a baseball stadium here in Wichita, Kansas, that I got to work with. And the whole timeline of from design to endpoint of construction was so compressed that we had to actually issue design submittals as construction was going on. So we had to have an underground package, and that had to be done by a certain date because they were going to start digging at a certain date. Okay, now we have to have the concrete package, the foundation package at a certain date because concrete's going to be there at a certain date. So the design timeline continues to become compressed more and more, and the expectations continue to grow, and that inevitably will lead to things that get missed, that can't get checked. That I mean, I talked to, again, people that have been here a long time. I'm thinking of somebody in particular that was communicating his frustration on, when he started, how the architect would be completely done with design, and then we as engineers would receive that design. We'd get to interact with them. Maybe a few changes would happen here and there, but now one of the beauties about Revit is that it's so easy to change things. But that's also one of the biggest frustrations we have is, as designers, it is so easy to change things, and now our models are linked in a live setting to where the architect can make a change, and I could see it within a couple minutes if I reload their model. So that means that, the things can change and shift the week that it is due, and the week that it's due has to happen because the bid has to be finished by a certain time so that we can start construction. So from my perspective, the design timeline has been completely compressed immensely, and I don't see that relieving at all. From the construction side, which we see at least the ramifications of it in the design and what we have to have ready at a certain time. The lead times, while they're getting better from the COVID time, it still remains a big problem. We have electrical equipment, and even some rooftop equipment that are months to months way out of date, and so we're having to put together. So on a couple projects that I'm thinking of, we just finished. We had to have early equipment packages so that they could start ordering the equipment before we are even finished with the design of the project. So we're literally ordering equipment before. You can do that from a general perspective. We can obviously make that work. There's a few tweaks here and there on the fine details, but yeah, it's crazy. We're ordering equipment and the design is not even done. So
that's interesting. So staying on the conversation on the compressed timeline.
Yeah.
I want to dig into that more. So how does a solution like OpenSpace help with that?
Yeah. I remember being taught early in my career that we professional engineering consultants, we sell our time, and it's the time that we have to a project that we can provide to the client. So time is really what it's all about, and that becomes efficiency to the time that you have on the actual project, which you're thinking about specific problems. But it all comes down to time. One of the biggest time sucks is actually getting out onto the project and capturing those existing conditions. The biggest time suck is when you don't capture everything you need the first time. So, we do a lot of work very locally. One of the projects we'll be looking at today, it's about an hour away from our office. So, and it's a big school. And so to take an hour out of the day to travel up there, to take capture of whatever elements we needed to, and then come back to the office, you're burning at least half a day, if not the full day. Now, to have something like OpenSpace, being able to capture as much information as you can, even information that you didn't know you needed until later, it saves a ton of time, because now you have a question about, I've got so many examples within meetings of a question comes up, whether internally or with an architect, about something specific. Hey, there's no roof drain there, or hey, there's a gas line that's on the east side of there, and I didn't see, I looked for it, I didn't see it. Actually, I did an open space capture. Can we pull this up while we're talking, while we're in a meeting, and direct me specifically where you're saying, oh, that's okay. I see what you're saying. Yes, I know what you mean. Now we can move forward because there was a disconnect between communication. You can only get so far with just describing something with your words. But now a picture shows what's the phrase? A picture tells 1,000 words. But a moving picture that you captured like right there, I mean, it's going to tell even more than 1,000 words. It's going to solve problems for you. It's going to help you continue to move forward and solve problems as they arrive, and not make me take half a day out of my time to move me and my team out to the job site, capture that information, come back to the office, digest it, now implement it. We can solve that problem, answer that question right there at our computers.
Yeah, I love that. And I think without, and I have these conversations with a lot of, trades, design firms. With traditional methods, I think those little moments are really underappreciated.
Yeah.
In regards to the amount of time spent, even when, they'll say, hey, my project is literally just a few blocks down. Those few blocks down could be, a 15-minute car ride, another 15 minutes getting up to the top of the site where you need to go. And those moments happen, hundreds to potentially 1,000 times over the course of a project, where you're turning that into a 30-second moment.
Yeah. And Josh, I'll even take it further. These projects that we're working on, they're not small projects, and oftentimes we have a big team that is helping make this happen. And so, let's say we have somebody who wasn't able to make it on site, or just time-wise, it didn't work. That somebody is coming in to help or whatever. Now I can hand somebody something like an open space capture, and they themselves, at their own time, at their own leisure, can go through an existing site without ever having to leave their desk. So instead of a traditional method where I went out and I took a bunch of pictures, now I've got they have access to where that folder is located. They can see all the pictures they locate of where it's at. And now they've got to spend time figuring out, well, where in the building was this actually taken? Is this in this mechanical room? And there's all, you took a picture here. That's fantastic. I need you to look down now. I don't know if there's a floor drain in this room. You took a picture of the water heater. Fantastic. Is there the existing drawings say that there's a floor drain in here? Is that accurate? I'm going to assume yes, because I don't have any other means to do it. Otherwise, we have to go an hour out of town to figure out if that's true or not. So anyway, to echo and continue that conversation, not just saving time going back out on site, but also helping to relay the same communication and the existing conditions to other engineers that are also working on it that have never been to the site as well.
Yeah, that's huge. So as we've kind of dove into OpenSpace a little more, tell us about your experience adopting OpenSpace, bringing it on board. What has that been like? Yeah.
So we were talking a little bit before, so I'm trying to remember how much I've shared with this, but so our journey into OpenSpace started with a client who was using a product called Matterport. Matterport is great. I think the niche for that product is more like a real estate agent who is trying to sell a property. So it's a really high quality camera. You sit it down on a tripod. It does a 360. It's actually capturing all of the spatial data as well, so you can actually measure off of it. Super crisp, super clear. And they started capturing the clients, the architects started capturing all of their existing projects with it. And that was fantastic. And everybody that had worked on projects with this client that had an opportunity to see and actually use a Matterport scan loved it and talked about how much time it saved. It was just fantastic. Well, we work with a lot of different architects. So, I was working on a project and I was finding myself wanting something like that. And so that kind of sent me down the rabbit hole of, okay, what is Matterport? How much does it cost? How can I get that product used in the projects that I'm working on that aren't with that specific client? And as I did so, as I started diving into it, understanding their pricing model and the time of capture, which was honestly the biggest thing, and also their niche. They're not suited specifically for design and construction as we are, as OpenSpace is, and as some of the other players in the industry are. So that set me down the path of trying to figure out, okay, obviously there is somebody out there that is solving this problem. Who and where is it? I found a few companies, and I started. I set up some meetings with a few people internally that would be also interested in something like this, and communicated with a bunch of people. We landed on OpenSpace. And it's been fantastic in implementing it in our projects, and it's been the biggest selling points for us were a few points. Number one is the speed of capture, and that's one of the things about Matterport that was really off-putting. Was it takes, I mean, each scan that they do takes like 30 plus seconds. Doesn't sound like much. And the product that it gives is fantastic. You can zoom way in, you can see crystal clear, and you can measure off things. It's fantastic. But to do even, half a school, it's gonna take you all day to do. And so he's pulling up the Heston project, and this was a project actually that we were working with this client, and they did the internal scan of this building, which was fantastic, and I used it a ton. But one of the things that they don't do is it doesn't do outside. Architects don't care about the roof at all. So what I did on my first site visit is I took 10 minutes and I walked around the exterior of the building. And I took pictures, as you can see here, I took pictures of all the different elements that I thought might be interesting at some point. And throughout the project, I referenced this, 50 plus times in the short amount of time that we were designing this. And I would bring this up during construction meetings or during design meetings with the architect. I shared this with the architect. So that was the first thing, was the speed of capture. Also the other elements of capture that I can have. Also the minute pictures that it's taking. So it's taking a picture every half second, I think, as you're walking. And so now as I'm walking, it's not, with Matterport, you put it down and then you do this capture and then you move it another 10, 20 feet and you do another capture. But with OpenSpace, obviously it's taking a picture every half second as you're walking. If I'm seeing something of interest, I can iterate in between each of those captures to capture whatever I want. Also, on top of that, I've got the floor plan, and I can take pictures through my phone, which is an even increased density of pixels, and it will place it on the floor plan of where it's at. So I don't know if we picked something of interest here. What might be okay, so we got a little downspout termination here, but as I'm going through this, I can see where that's at, and I can look for it and tag it, and do whatever I need to on it for this. So implementing it into our workflow was fairly simple. It's fairly intuitive. I joke internally that it's funny that the more experience an engineer has, I'm not saying age, I'm saying the experience that an engineer has, the more steps I need to, and the more time I need to work with them in order to actually use the software. Anybody my age and younger, they take to it right away, and it's very, very intuitive. Those engineers with a little bit more experience, they're not as familiar with some of the typical app like intuitions that we might be. So it takes a little bit more, but I've got plenty of engineers that are much more experienced than I that have been using this. I'm just thinking of somebody that just today messaged me to let me know that they took a camera for use today. Anyway,
has the feedback been from your team when they see the captures, or their first reaction to the captures? Ease of using, making the captures, the field notes, the way this helps with meetings. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Perfect. So I've been kind of the guy to not only adopt but kind of champion OpenSpace as a tool that we can use. You're highlighting that in that WSU NIRDT, and this is a project that I used that was just finishing design as we were getting OpenSpace on board. So mentally, my plan was to use this project as a perfect teaching and display tool internally about what we can do. So when I pitched this internally, and so to also go back on my my other role, one of my roles here at PEC is kind of that Revit technology. So I'm very much adept to in thinking about how to get people to use certain tools. For me, any tool that we're trying to introduce or have available, I don't want to be the one to force anybody to use any tool that we have available. The tool should sell itself. And so for me, simply showing this should be all the sales pitch I need. And so that's the same thing, the same way I approach Revit. If I'm building a specific family with a specific thing, all I should have to do is show you how to use it once, maybe twice to remind you. And then you should say, oh, wow, that would save me a ton of time. Yeah, I would like to use that, please. That's all the selling that I want to do. I don't want to have to force you to, hey, this is our new strategy. This is how we're going to implement this. I'm going to follow up with you to make sure that you're doing it this way. I'm not in that business. Here, though, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to show I usually am actually at this spot here, and I go backwards in time to demonstrate how I have been on site multiple times. And every time that I was on site, as I'm looking around in this space, I can take somebody through a capture, and I can see exactly what was there anywhere that I walked when I was on site. So the tagline, at least at one point you guys had, was the construction time machine. And this capture specifically for this project wasn't the exact use case that I am pitching PEC on how to use it, or design engineers as a whole how to use it. But seeing this starts to trigger those aha moments for engineers internally when they see, when I expand that floor plan and I show them, hey, you can see the path that I walked. Hey, this path, this took me 10 minutes to walk. And after walking this, I have all of this information for me that I have available forever, and that I have the ability to share with you or an architect or a contractor or whoever I want to. That automatically starts getting the juices flowing of, oh, interesting. Help. Okay, wait, can you do this? What is this? And they start asking questions on how they use it. And I start going into the field notes, which is, it's through your phone anyway, which is how all engineers are going to be used to taking captures of existing conditions anyway, is just through your phone. All I'm asking you to do now is to download this app, get invited to this project, and now before you start, point and touch where you are on the floor plan, and then just start walking around like you normally would. Take pictures. When you take pictures, take them through the OpenSpace app. And now that you've done so, and so I'll any one of these field notes, what I do is I hit the little circle button up at the top. So get me where you're supposed to be on the floor plan. So yeah, view that note in 3D, and boom, you're right where I was. Not only when I took the picture, so here, yeah, you can kind of see I was actually taking a picture of the fin tube through the window inside there. But I can see where I was on the floor plan. I can see where I'm looking on the floor plan. And once I escape out of this view note, I can see everything else around me and start looking at the other elements that are part of the project and where I'm at. Again, just simply showing this off starts to get those understandings checked from an engineer who's had problems in the field of taking a picture, not knowing where is that on the floor plan, or taking a picture and not getting the entire scope of what they're looking at. So they're looking at the water heater, where's the floor drain, or the panel that's right next to them. So, all of these are problems that everybody in this office has intuitively had at one point, that when I show this off, they say, oh, actually, this is really cool. How do I use that for? I've got a project I'm working on right now. How do I get this set up for what I want? So anyway,
I love your approach to how you sell a product internally. You essentially just show it, and they have to come to a conclusion on their own if they're going to adopt it or not. And kind of alluding to what you were saying earlier, OpenSpace is an extremely easy product to use. So I'm sure at first glance, this seems exciting, but the question is always like, okay, like, what do I have to do to make it happen? And do it once. I'm sure their reaction is, this is very easy.
Yep. I've got one of the things I did internally was I have a whole Amazon cart. So I have a kit for the camera, all of the mounts that they need, the selfie stick, the chargers, like everything that I need, they have it in a kit, so they can take it with them. I've got something set up with IT so that they can check it out if we need to on the calendar. I've got kind of a location of where it's at. I now have one of these in each of our offices for people to use, and yeah, it's been great to at least having. Once people start using this and start seeing it, then I've seen, I mean, it's a slow integration. Like I said, we've only been using it for a year, and most of our satellite offices have only had it for a few months. But yeah, here in Wichita, I've personally take this and use this on all of my projects. Anytime I'm going out on the field, I take it. And I've started to see that implemented more and more on everybody else around me. So yeah.
That's awesome to hear. So like I had said earlier, before this call, you're the first person to do a fireside chat from the design and engineering
Sweet.
World. So you are the voice of design
Okay.
for OpenSpace and your world.
Yeah.
Tell us, like, I know we've kind of covered through and we went through everything, but in the most condensed way, if you could take design and engineering world, like, what's the value of OpenSpace for you?
Yeah, it is two things. It's speed of capture and breadth of capture when I'm on site for existing conditions. I mean, that is what it is, as easy as I can sell it. So if you pull up that Heston project, actually, if we were to jump on the roof of that, yeah, let's do that Heston project. Yeah, if we were to jump on, yeah, that's that roof. I actually went back out because I didn't, and this was a learning lesson for me. If ever you have the opportunity, get the whole site because you're going to need it anyway. So yeah, if you open up this roof, or yeah, make that roof plan a little bit bigger. This isn't a small school, so it's a fairly big school, and I walked the entirety of the roof. This probably took me 15-20 minutes. And I mean, we can go through any of these captures as I was walking around. And all these field notes that you're seeing on there, I was taking pictures of pieces of equipment, things of interest that I would have typically been doing anyway while I was on site. And I now have with let's say I would have walked to the roof anyway. So let's say I'm adding 5 to 10 more minutes. Let's be conservative and say 30 more minutes for all of the prep work I had to do of getting the project set up on site, getting everything set up and actually started, and then the upload process. Doing maybe 30 more minutes of work, I now have something that I can share with internally with the other design team, with contractors through a publicly shareable link that I can access now forever. And I mean, to me, yeah, to condense it down, it's the two things. It's the time of capture, because I'm literally just wearing a hard hat and I'm walking around. That's all I'm doing. I'm already planning on walking this site, so I'm now capturing everything that I both did see and didn't think to see or look at while I was there. And also I'm capturing exponentially more information than I would have if I had not been doing this. Of course, I would have been taking pictures. I might have been writing things down more, but it's saving me time of traveling back, and it's saving me time to think about, yeah, this is one of the best case scenario things that I use it for. Is I usually am going around taking pictures of nameplates and information, and either so now if I just threw that in a folder, how would I know what piece of equipment that is, where that's located at, or anything? I'd have to kind of do some context clues of other pictures that are around it. But now I can see exactly where it's at on the floor plan, and I didn't do any extra work to put that there. I just pointed where I was when I started walking. So yeah, time and breadth of capture.
I love it. No, I mean, it's huge. The amount of time saved in using a solution like OpenSpace. It's leveraging AI and computer vision, machine learning. It's the direction you see it, the construction, the design industry is going in. It's like, how can we, make our time more efficient as these timelines become more compressed. And it's exciting to hear what you guys are doing over at PEC. Appreciate you sitting down with us today.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, this was a good one. Appreciate your time, Alex.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Tom.
All right, guys.
Bye.